bringing delights and unshakable faith. We believe that the heart of a man is a treasure trove of untold stories, powerful lessons, and profound wisdom. Through authentic dialogues and insightful discussions, we aim to unlock these treasures, one story at a time. So, whether you're seeking guidance, inspiration, or simply a moment of reflection, you're in the right place. Get ready to be challenged, inspired, and transformed. And now, to guide you through this journey of discovery, please welcome your host, a visionary leader and a true catalyst for change, Dwayne Dwyer, but we affectionately know him as the Mindset Coach.
Good Friday evening, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the Hearts of Men podcast. We are your hosts for this evening's conversation. My name is Dwayne Dwyer. I go by the Mindset Coach, and I'm joined by my brothers to my side. You have Mr. Roland Walker himself, also known as Poor Man's Dr. Phil, or Mr. Shift Happen. And below him, we have our other brother, Mr. Garfield Martin, also known from the Uncle Junior Network, also known as the Consistency Coach. Gentlemen, how are you doing on this beautiful Friday evening?
Made it another week. Doing well.
There you go. That's what I'm talking about. Greatly appreciate it. Hey, I want everybody to, give a special shout out and some prayers for my brothers out there. Chris still working, and brother Gaddy, he's a little under the weather. So everybody put a special prayer on your prayer list for him, so that he can get well, and so that brother Chris can be safe out there as he's traveling and doing what he do. Listen, I want to make sure that I acknowledge everybody who joined us. And of course, you know how we do over here. We like to acknowledge people by name because we greatly appreciate you guys being here. You can be any other place on a Friday evening, but you are here with us, and we greatly appreciate that. So that said, good evening, Miss Michelle Ray, Miss Verlene McCoy, aka Queen V, Miss Adrian Walter, good to see you. Keys the Key Realtor, good to see you. Miss Charlotte Jordan's in the house. We love it. Good to see you. May Bird, good to see you as well. And for anyone else who Ben Sadiq, well, this cat here. For anybody else, you caught me off guard, man. Ben Sadiq, that's rolling, y'all, just to let y'all know. Ms. Bernadette Simmons, good to see you as well. And for anybody else who is out there who has not gotten the opportunity to get in the chat, again, get in the chat because we like to celebrate your presence here on this network by name because we appreciate you being here. Also, if this is your first time joining us, by all means, if you're on YouTube, go ahead and put your cursor in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and hit find the YouTube emblem and put your cursor over that, then to fly out. Just go ahead and click on the subscribe button. And go ahead and make sure that you do the notification as well. Hit the notification bell, hit the drop down and select all. That way, you know, every time we go live. If you are with us on any other channel, whether it's YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, or X, I'm sorry. Again, I want to make sure that I welcome you. Monique Cuisine, good to see you. And again, everybody, welcome. So, gentlemen, we're going to go ahead and dive right into this conversation so we can get this ball rolling here. Are you ready to challenge your daily habits, to discover the secrets of habit formation intertwined with modern psychology and timeless wisdom? If yes, you're in the right place. Welcome to Habit Formation and Change, what I tend to call the blueprint for a better you. A transformative video that's more than just a guide. It's your first step towards a revolutionary new you. Today, we'll unpack the science of habits. We don't stop at science. We explore the rich tapestry of wisdom, offering guidance and strength in developing discipline and perseverance in habit formation. Pay close attention to equip yourself with practical, actionable strategies. Learn how to forge lasting habits that align with your deepest values and life goals. Discover how to tackle the common obstacle in changing negative habits, and how being part of a supportive community can significantly boost your habit formation journey. This video is for everyone: students, professionals, parents, and anyone in pursuit of personal growth, tailored to help you unlock your potential through effective habit management. That's not all. Join the membership program for an in depth exploration into habit formation, or step into our illustrious Diamond Club for accelerated personal and professional growth. So, are you ready to take the first step towards a more disciplined, fulfilling life? Remember, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Let this video be your stepping stone to greatness. Subscribe, like, and share if this video resonates with you. Join us in our mission to serve the greater good of humanity through personal transformation. Your journey to greatness starts now. So, one of the things I want to make sure that I put out there is a disclaimer for everybody that's on the panel, right? And I think it's important for us to understand that we are all subject matter experts of our own perspective. And I think that's important to say. On this channel, which is called Empowering Perspectives, we believe in listening to multiple perspectives, not necessarily saying that they're wrong, but just considering their perspective intertwined with my own perspective. Because what I like to look at is triangulating perspectives, which get us closer to what I tend to call true. So, that said, did you know, gentlemen, it takes most people about 66 days to change a habit? Now, I remember years ago, I think the number we used to go, it was 21 days. That number is grossly wrong. It's 66 days. All right. Number two, writing down goals increase completion rates by 42%. Number three, having an accountability person increases success by 70%. Number four, being reminded of a new habit engenders 12% more completed goals than no reminders at all. And lastly, tracking new habits or support from workshops advances behavioral change. For an individual, 36%, and for a group, 62%. That being said, gentlemen, what are your thoughts just listening to those numbers and statistics that I just spewed across the airways?
I'll start. 66 days. As I'm listening, as I was listening to the different things that you said, I was looking at how many of those things applied to, not applied, but how many of those things are based off of mindset, right? So some of those things that you talked about were external things, you know what I mean? Like with someone reminding you, you know what I mean? Or maybe even bringing it to your attention, you know? So I was just looking at overall, what can I control and what can't I control? You know, I understand the 66 days. I also know people who have, you know, they just hit a switch and they stopped. You know what I mean? Like if you look at someone who may quit smoking, there may be a habit, but not smoking is a habit too. You know what I mean? So it's like they go for years and years and years, and some people can quit cold turkey. They don't need the 21 or the 66 days. So it was just interesting listening to the different numbers and stuff that you put out. And yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to get into this, especially with how close habit formation aligns sometimes in a rare, very closely to consistency. So
Yeah.
I'm all ears and listening.
You know, I like what you just said just now. And it kind of sounds like you were talking about intrinsic motivators versus extrinsic motivators. What I can control and what I can't control. If you don't mind, kind of like, and I don't want to insult anybody's intelligence, but I really want to unpack this before we get into it, because we're going to go through that process. But if you don't mind, kind of unpack that for us. Like, give me an example of an intrinsic motivator versus an extrinsic motivator.
Intrinsic is more internal. Like, so if I say, you know what, I just want to be in better shape and I want to be in better health. And then I go out there and I start do something, and then I keep myself accountable for those things and I create the mindset. I think the external part is when, hey, coach, can you call me every single morning at 5 o'clock to wake me up to make sure that I get out there and run? You know what I mean? Those are coming from somebody else external. And I think I know we're going to pack it more, but the thing about the external motivator is that if that external motivator is not there, what do? You know, I know some people, the external motivator may be they're going to a ball, so they need to get into a new dress, or, you know, they have something going on that will focus them and to keep them motivated for that time. After the wedding is over, after the ball is over, after, I'm not picking on women, I'm just saying those are
Right.
two that are commonly, you know, talked about when it comes to losing weight. You know, it's usually to get in some sort of dress or something. Not usually, but sometimes that's the case. So, like I said, that's all fine and dandy, but when those external are not there anymore, you got to look at the man in the mirror. And if you don't have the mindset, and if you don't have things locked down with your discipline and other different things, it's going to be a struggle. So I hope I answered the question.
No, you did. You did. I like that. And the reason why I asked that, because I remember a few weeks back, you and Gaddy had kind of like a conversation in relation to motivating me, right?
Mhm.
And one of the things you were very stern about, and I loved it, right? You said, well, it's not my responsibility to motivate someone else, right?
Mhm.
Even though if I motivate someone else, I'm adding to it now.
Adding
Even
to
though if I motivate someone else, you know, it's an honor for me to do so, but it's not a responsibility. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted you to kind of unpack that.
Okay.
Poor man's Dr. Phil, what saith ye?
Man, he put some stuff out there. I think I've grown up and I've been around people who were addicted to things my whole life, from birth, even now. Some things people don't realize they're addicted to, especially when it comes to people's eating habits. We don't realize, say, hey, I just got to have that burger. I just got to have, like, I tell people, bacon to me was the best meat ever. I think that was on the tree when Eve, that was the fruit on the tree to me. It had to be bacon. And when I wanted to stop eating it, I realized how much of a hold it had on me. And because some things you just like to do. And it's like, okay, I ain't got to do that. But it's other things that you want to stop doing that you realize, like, hold up, I'm more of a slave to it than it is to me, because I can't function without it. Some people can't function without that cup of joe in the morning. Some people can't function unless they walk, unless they run, unless they doing something that they have developed into a habit. So when we talk about addictions, we have to identify what we're addicted to. Some people are addicted to sympathy. I need people's sympathy. I'm gonna cry until I get what I want. And until you realize that this thing has more of a hold on you and control on you than you have on it, you won't recognize it as an addiction.
Mm. So you had to mention bacon in this whole conversation. Huh? I'm just saying you could have picked anything else out there. I'm sorry.
I ain't heard nothing after bacon. Ever since he said bacon, I just been focused on a BLT for breakfast tomorrow. So, Miss Uncle Junior, if you're listening, BLT for breakfast in the morning.
Yeah. I thought it was just me. Now I'm joking, but I'm serious. And I like the fact that you went there, because a lot of our eating habits stem from where we were raised at and how we were raised. And understanding area, geographic location kind of plays a factor. Socioeconomics, like we talked about last week, plays a factor. And all of those things stockpile on one another. We got to realize in some cases, a lot of us ate what we could because that's what our parents could afford. And then as we got older, just based upon sheer habit, we kind of continued doing those things. So I like that. And I'm going to take that thought that you said and kind of combine it with what Uncle Junior said. What is my intrinsic motivator to change what I'm eating? What is, you know what I'm saying? Do I have an external motivator as well? But do I depend on that external motivator to continue to motivate me to change my eating habits, or should it be something more internal? And it kind of goes back along with that. I'm just going to call it a prom dress, bro. We're going to say it that way. So greatly appreciate your guys' perspective on that. And again, we're continuing. Wait, what am I saying here? We will. We're gonna get there. I know that it's gonna be somebody. I promise you, that's gonna bring it up in the chat and they're gonna make me talk about it. I guarantee. Okay. I'm just gonna wait though. But yes, you guys will figure out what we talk about here in a second. So as we start to get after this, I want to start off with what I tend to call an introduction to habit formation. And I am just going to piggyback off of an article, and I will put it in the chat for everybody to get after. And the article was written by some young man named Aresh Memzada. I'm just going to go with that in 2022. And it kind of talked about habit formation, and it's some things that came along with it that he kind of broke down. So as we're getting into it, I want to kind of unpack habits first, right? Before we get into some of the things he talked about in the article. So real quick, just, your guys' thoughts. How would you describe a habit?
Hmm.
I think it's something that you just kind of do kind of routinely over and over and over. You know what I mean? That's kind of, and basically, what I think it is. It can be good or bad.
Yeah,
You know?
something you do routinely, whether it be subconscious or I mean, I guess it's going there. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I
it's
told
like
you.
we habitually do things when we get up in the morning. Some of us go use the bathroom. Some of us wash our face, brush our teeth. Some of us jump on that little device next to the bed because it's a habit now. It's something that, hey, it's just me now. And people will say it's just what I do because it's a habit now.
But I guess the thing I really want you guys to get after is like, and I get the routine, and I'm not denying the routine. I'm not rejecting that. However, what I want to ask is what makes it a habit?
What makes it a habit?
What makes a habit a habit? The routine, the consistency, the amount of time you do it. I don't know, man. What makes a habit a habit?
What you got? What you got, Ro?
I guess it's regularly practice. It's a tendency.
You kind of
It's something
mentioned it.
that habits you don't even have to think about. It's just
What was that word you mentioned a few minutes ago?
subconscious, or it's either conscious or subconscious.
It's subconscious.
But I think it's both.
Habits shouldn't be both because they just happen.
So I think there are habits that are conscious, and I think they're subconscious. So like, you ever seen somebody just go around and start biting their nails? I think that's subconscious, and I think sometimes they may come from nerves, being nervousness, or I'm not a nail biter, so I don't know, but I do know people who bite their nails, right? But I also think that me going to the gym 5 days a week, I think that's a habit too, but I think that's a conscious habit. So I am on the side, and I'm definitely want to get into it,
Right.
but I am on the side that there are conscious habits and unconscious habits.
So how long have you been going to the gym?
Oh man. Oh shoot, close to 30 years.
There you go. And have you been going to the gym on a consistent basis, like Monday through Friday, or what does your schedule look like?
Well, it all depends on what I'm training for. Right now I'm about to go into a 6-day a week, just because I got a couple of events this year, and I'm gonna say it here first publicly. I'm doing my first marathon this year, so in October. So
Take
So it's gonna-
a lot of pictures. I want to live vicariously through your pain.
Hey, I'm doing 3 halves too. So
Oh yeah.
there is a I have to continue. So right now it's going to be 6, but it's going to change throughout that, depend on what's next on the schedule.
So the frequency doesn't make it conscious. It just means you're doing it more frequent or less frequent. But if you don't do it, your mind, your subconscious will tell you something is wrong.
Mhm.
That's what makes it subconscious.
That was the point I was getting at.
Because your normal behavior has changed, has shifted, because right now that's your normal behavior. So it's you unconsciously know, hey, next week I'm going to the gym. I don't know how many days, but I'm going to the gym. Because if you don't, then it's like, oh man, I feel a certain way. But when you do it, you feel fulfilled. That's where that intrinsic reaction comes in now, because there's a fulfillment in it for you. It's not about a reward. It's not necessarily about the marathon, because you're gonna do it either way.
Hmm. And I think what I was going to ask after you gave us kind of like your routine, what do you go through when you don't go to the gym? Do you feel guilty? Do you feel like, man, I could have went to the gym today? Like all those things.
Both. So it depends. Sometimes, just to be honest, sometimes I do feel some pressure. I'm just like, bro, you can go to the gym, but then sometimes I will look at it and say, is this your mind and your body telling you to relax or to rest or take a break? If it's not that, then I'm like, bro, you just being lazy. You know what I mean? So I do have a mental conversation with myself if I don't go, as to the reason why. Is it, like I said, is it because I was lazy, or is it because my body was really telling me that I needed to take a break today? So
Yeah. And it's almost like you go through some sort of withdrawals, right? You're accustomed to doing a thing and you didn't do the thing, and it's like you start feeling bad, you start feeling guilty, you start having these self-talks with yourself, like, man, you could have been doing this, you could have been doing that. So what have you done to show for it in lieu of this? Like you'll go through all types of I want to use the term cognitive dissonance, but you'll go through all types of different versions of anxiety in lieu of actually doing the thing that you're accustomed to do. Just like when I started off with the did you know, it takes 66 days to change a habit. Well, how many days does it take to form a habit? 66 days, right? So that's the thing. So the consistency up to that point is what I tend to call practice. You're practicing doing a thing until it becomes habitual. You're getting it to move through different quadrants that I've been talking about for like the past 2 weeks. You get it to move through different quadrants until it becomes in your subconscious. Once it becomes your subconscious, then it becomes automatic.
I sure don't feel like going to the gym every morning. So does that account for anything in this conversation?
Well, I mean, in that's probably your body talking to say, hey man, I need some rest. You know what I'm saying?
No, it's that alarm clock to go off at 4 o'clock when I didn't go to bed till 12.
It's
That's
the
part
same
of
way.
it too.
Think about smokers. Smokers
Mhm.
don't necessarily. It's not the smoke per se. Sometimes I know people who stopped smoking, but they always had to have something in their mouth. They always had to have something, chewing something, doing something with their mouth, because they developed that habit. So now the smoke is gone, but the mannerisms are the same. The actions still give them a sense of fulfillment. It still sends something to their brain saying, man, we're doing this part of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love it. Let's see what they're talking about in the chats, because I told you, just give time. It was going to come up. Didn't I tell you? So
You did.
Adrian put a point up here. She says that a habit is when it becomes taxing or a problem when you don't do it or have it. Absolutely. Perfect example is Roland just talked about smokers. We just talked about you missing the gym. So I agree with that 100%. Um, I think Michelle says conscious is the habit. This is something you do without thinking about it. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Greatly appreciate that. Miss McCoy says, when we consistently do things the same way, no matter if we know that you can change the way we do things. Yeah, the consistency is the thing that gets you into the formation phase of it. I think we have another question. Would mastery of a skill be considered a habit? To a certain degree, yes. That gets into two forms of a discussion, that gets into competency, and that gets into conscious versus subconscious as well. So great question, Lisa K. And you know that. Stop playing. So great question. I'm glad you asked that.
About
So
to
it's
start
kind of,
throwing up them diamonds in a minute.
I'm just saying, they about to start showing up. All right, so let's kind of dive into the next question here. Why do many people struggle with forming and maintaining healthy habits?
Because them jokers is hard, just to be honest.
Say
For a
more.
lot of people, because think about this. if you were over the age of 20 or the age of 30, right? And you may have been, let's go back to the working out thing, right? You have never worked out your entire life, right? No problem. All of a sudden we have a target. The target again is the dress, all right? Or the bikini for the beach, right? You haven't worked out in 30 years. So it can be very challenging to go out there and start a 7-day routine of running on a treadmill with a weight vest. I'm just saying, right? So I think it's hard because it is something that you're sometimes not used to doing. So I know there's a bunch of different reasons, but my first take on this is that a lot of people struggle with this because it's new, it's something new that they're not used to doing. And sometimes, and another thing, the mindset may not have been created or established before the new habit is being started. What I mean by that is you haven't done the mind work. You haven't done, the consistency part of doing something in a routine. So your mindset may not be there yet. So I think, those two things just to start off with.
Why do so many people struggle with forming and maintaining healthy habits? I think because we live in a society that pushes unhealthy habits and we've been doing it our whole life. Or even if you do other things, you got to have some type of intrinsic motivation to change. Because some of us say, well, I'm good as is. I don't have to go to the gym. I ain't trying to impress nobody. She like it, so I'm good. What we were talking about earlier. Hey, because if I don't necessarily want to change, but I know I need to change, I have to have something that says you need to do better. You need to do healthier. Like, you wasn't gonna tell me I wasn't gonna eat pork and all this other stuff before I had my heart conditions and stuff. So I'm like, whatever. I used to go to, who was it, McDonald's, and get me 2 sausage, egg, and cheese McGriddles, and I would call them a heart attack sandwich, and I would get them every day, and because I felt I was healthy. And then situation come, and now like, man, I gotta change. Why? Because I saw life flash before my eyes, so I knew something had to give. And if I kept going down that road, I wouldn't have to argue about whether I want to do it or not.
I
Can I
like
add
that.
to this?
Sure.
Okay, back to the mindset. When we was in the military, all 3 of us was in. We all retired. We had to get up. It wasn't optional most of our career, or at least some of our career, to get up and do PT 3 to 5 days a week. Right. So when we got out of the military, some people say, oh man, you guys learned discipline, all these different things. Yes, some things we did learn as discipline, but some things were based off of this is how things are done in the military. You get up 6:30 in the morning, 6:30 to 7:30, 8 o'clock, depending on what unit you in, and we're going to do PT. Well, once you get out and retire, there is no longer anybody making you get up and do PT. So now you have to form and maintain PT or some sort of physical fitness. You don't have to, but some people may want to do that once they get out. But it may be hard because now you don't have anybody externally making you or force you do the thing, and that goes back to the mindset piece. When we got out of the military, like we had to make a conscious decision to go and work out. You know what I mean? We did it, but we didn't always do it because we wanted to. It's because the Army said Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Tuesday and Thursday, you guys are going to work out. So I think that goes back to the mindset piece and just kind of be changing, or it can be a struggle when you have been forced to do something and then now you have to do it on your own.
Coach, we was in the wrong army. We didn't have no talking about Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday. No, it was every day.
I was aviation.
Yeah, but we didn't have choices, split up days and stuff.
Yeah.
I'm
But
telling
I
you,
remember at one time we had, one day, I remember we used to do sergeant time training on Thursdays, I think, what we did. And then, so sometimes we might not have, I think one unit I was in, we didn't do PT. I think it might have been one unit. So,
yeah, I went rolling. Sorry, bro. We every day.
I wasn't 13s either. I wasn't
Yeah.
combat.
I didn't realize that side of the Army existed until I got closer to retirement. I'm not gonna
Mhm.
lie. I'm enjoying listening to what everybody's saying, and I'm agreeing with everything. I will also add to what you're saying is that for one of the reasons I believe most people struggle with forming and maintaining healthy habits is because in their mind the juice is not worth the squeeze. They don't necessarily see the risk reward factor as being a thing. So it's the risk of the pain it takes to continue this thing for X amount of time to get to the end state of the reward. And so they don't necessarily want to sacrifice something that they like doing, because again, we're raised in a society that focus on how we feel more than what's actually good for us. So I don't want to sacrifice what I like doing for the thing that I actually need to do. And so I am going to keep doing what I like doing and then run the risk to suffer the consequences in the long run. And then when the consequences present itself, now I have no choice but to do it. And it's going to be a lot more painful there. And I think when you look at, Roland and what he called his, what would you call it, Roland? Your McDonald's thing, what'd you call
Oh,
it?
the sausage, egg, and cheese McGriddle.
No, you had a title for it. It was a heart attack, something like that.
Oh, the heart attack sandwich. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's kind of like an example. And I'm not, putting him on Front Street, you know what I'm saying? I'm just using the example they use. So when we do things like that, then what ends up happening is that on the end, we have some type of consequence that we're going to deal with. So that's kind of like my perspective when it comes down to why do many people struggle with forming and maintaining healthy habits. Also, I also believe that they don't necessarily have the right support group, and so they don't necessarily have the right support group to urge them to change certain habits, because most of the support group is probably participating in the exact same unhealthy habit that they need to change. And so if I surround myself with all these people and all we do is we drink, uh, kind of like my old private days, 15 pack of Coke 45 every time we get off work, right? So that's what we go do. And so there is no motivator within that group to say, hey, we need to stop doing that. Focus on drinking more water and continuing our exercise regime. So that's kind of like my perspective of that. Let me see. Anybody in the chat I need to pull out? Come on once. No? Okay. So let's jump on the third question before we kind of unpack these principles. Okay. What are the best ways to create healthy habits in your opinions? The best ways that you found to do so.
One is to have a plan. That's key right there. A lot of people have a plan, and that plan should include, some sort of dates, some sort of timeline or something like that, and some sort of goals inside of that plan, short and long term. Let's go back to the dress again. All right. So the wedding is in this is January. The wedding is in June. You got to get down however many dress sizes, right? So you can't just go and say, hey, you know what? I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna start doing something, and I'm gonna go walking every day and I'm gonna lose the pounds that I need in order to get out there. Well, that's not really a plan. That's just something that you said that you're gonna do. A plan may look like, okay, well, and the more specific you get, I think the better it is. So your plan says, all right, so my target date for this weight loss is, the wedding is June the 30th. So your target is, June the 30th or June the 15th, or either for the last fitting of the dress. I don't know. And then you say, okay, well, how much weight do I need to lose? Okay, well, I need to lose 20 pounds. Okay, well, over the next 6 months, that averages X amount of pounds each month. All right, so what do I need to do in order to lose weight? What exercise do I need to do in order to lose the weight? How many days a week am I going to work out in order to, blah, 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 and how many calories, what my meal plan, all these different things. So at the end of the day, my answer to this is create a plan. A detailed plan is one way to create a healthier habit, or at least to start the process.
And along with creating that plan, make sure you write it down and something, and keep track of it like a daily report. You got to start journaling so that you can keep track of everything that you're doing, knowing where you are and where you were, so that you can monitor your progress. And one thing with weight, I wouldn't necessarily look at weight as the amount, because sometimes you can say, okay, I want to lose 40 pounds. But if you lost 20 pounds and you were in shape, you're already looking like you want to look. You're already in better shape. And that may be more feasible than you sitting up there putting stringent requirements on yourself saying, I'm going to lose 60 pounds. Like, you 49 years old, you know you ain't about to lose no, you ain't going on The Biggest Loser. It ain't about to happen. So when you do that, you set yourself up for failure. Like if I said, okay, I'm going to run the marathon with you. I'm not even walking 20 whatever miles. So I'm dang sure not about to run it. So when you put expectations that gradually get you to your goal, it's easier on you, because now you start to develop the habit of whatever you're trying to form, instead of trying to jump into it saying, okay, I'm gonna swim like Michael Phelps. Now go on, get in that kiddie pool with them things around your arms and learn how to tread water first.
Yeah, and then have the goals, and then like doing the process of creating habits. Like it's okay to recognize and be joyous and joyful for the small things, you know. And I think sometimes those things are often overlooked. You know what I mean? So I remember one time, you know, small story, when I was going through, you know, I gained some weight when I got out a little bit. You know, I looked in the mirror and I looked like the letter D. You know what I'm saying, around the stomach, and I didn't want that no more. So I talked to I had a trainer. I started working out and stuff, and then after I don't know, 6 to 8 weeks, you know, I was sending them pictures every week, and it wasn't, you know, I was like, man, I don't think things working out. You know, that joker sent me back the picture I sent him that day and the one that I sent him from 6 weeks ago. And he was like, bro, look, you know what I mean? So he was talking about, you know, celebrating the small wins. You know, if it's 1 pound, you know, back to the dress, if it's 1 pound or if it's 2 pounds, don't forget that, you know, you got the 1 pound or the 2 pound. You know what I mean? Be happy for those 1 pounds and 2 pounds. You know what I mean? This is a long process, especially if even after the wedding dress, you want this to be a habit in your life. You know what I mean? This is just the beginning of it. So, and then like those goals, write them down and appreciate them. You know, nothing wrong with only losing 1 pound. Like that's 1 more pound. It's 1 less pound that you have to go. You know, so celebrating the small wins.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with all of that. You got to celebrate wins. You got to set goals. I think for me, when it comes down to in conjunction with everything that you're saying, one of the best ways to create healthy habits is understand what those healthy habits are first. I think sometimes we just come up with these very vague goals. I want to lose weight. You know what I'm saying? But then I don't necessarily know how to do it. Or I want to buy a house, or I want to buy a car, whatever, right? I'm just using that all as examples. But we don't necessarily understand the healthy habits or what it takes to get to the healthy habits or the process. So there's some learning that needs to take place prior to going through the steps of creating new habits. We can change habits, sure, but whether or not the habits that we change, was it for the better? Was it in the direction that you really want to go? It's a difference between, doing the right things and doing things right. And so sometimes we kind of conflate the two and give ourselves like, super credit for doing that, doing those things. So we need to understand the process, right? But we also need to understand what the expected outcome is as well. And if we do not have an idea of an expected outcome, then you will get any outcome while going through the process. So I think all of those things are important. It kind of goes back to goal setting. Again, if you guys want to kind of understand our detailed process of goal setting that we've had several conversations on, by all means, go to www.totalmindsetshift.com and join the membership program, where you will have access to the entire video library outside of the Diamond program. The Diamond program gets every videos. In the membership program, you get the membership programs minus the Diamond videos. And in the membership program, you'll find the goal setting steps that we actually went and put forth and talked about. For those of you who are joining us again, don't forget to hit the like button. Don't forget to share it with people that you know, love, and care about. And again, we're going to continue to press into the meat of this conversation now. So getting back to what I mentioned previously, and I'm gonna put the link in the chat. That way everybody have access to it, right? So this link takes you to the article that I was talking about, 6 principles to form healthy habits. So that way everybody have them, and you can read them at your leisure. But what I want to do is kind of go down each step that he talked about and then let us talk about each one of them. So step one is habits do not depend on goals. Now, I know we just got finished talking about goals, right? So that's one of the reasons why I allowed it to go, because now we got to talk about the other side of it. Habits, again, do not depend, that's the key, on goals. So the question that I want to ask you guys real quick are, what are the practical implications of understanding that habits are not entirely reliant on specific goals? What are the practical implications of understanding that habits are not entirely reliant on specific goals?
I'm still reading the question again.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think
Go
I
ahead.
look at it like when we got out the military, we were all used to waking up early. Now we had to wake up early, and the goal was to get to work, check on soldiers, do PT, and get our day started. After retirement, some of us, we get up for absolutely no reason at all. So now, what's the goal? I had to start new, because I already got the habit. Now I have to implement new goals because the habit is there. The habit ain't going nowhere. I don't care what's going on, where I am. I will get up early, but now I have to find something to do. So what do? I make a plan and do everything that we stated before, so that I can develop new things to do, new goals to accomplish.
I don't know if I'm gonna get this, but I'm gonna take a stab at it. So this kind of goes back to the dress, but this time I'm gonna use a guy, and he want to lose some weight so he can go to the beach this summer, right? So I'm kind of looking at it as like, if the specific goal is to get into his swimming trunks for the beach, that's the goal. But it doesn't necessarily mean that even if he completes his goal, that the habit is formed. Because once you do 6 months of training and you have met your goal, and it's June, and you can fit into those swim trunks that you've been eyeing. Well, after the boys trip or whatever, you get into the swimming trunks. It doesn't necessarily mean that that habit was formed, even if it was after 66 days. So what are you going to do after you fit into those shorts? Are you going to continue on? If so, maybe that may turn into a habit, but that's kind of where my mind was going. I don't know if I was totally off or not, but that's just where my mind was going when I was looking at this question.
No, I wouldn't say that your mind was totally off. I think for me, the key in this question is practical implications. I think a lot of times, because some people struggle with goal setting. Some of us struggle with defining goals. Some of us struggle with making smart goals, things of that nature. Then we delay our starting process to changing habits because we don't have clearly defined goals. And because I don't have clearly defined goals, I won't do anything until I, define my goals. And so some people struggle in the space of not having clear, articulated instructions. But at the end of the day, if you want to change a habit, change the habit. Do something. Don't just sit there. Do something, right? And I think that's the thing. We get fixed on having 1, 2, 3, 4. And if I don't have 1, 2, 3, 4, I don't know what to do. Well, doing nothing is not necessarily making any changes. So if what he says is accurate, then when we look at habits do not depend on goals or do not rely on goals, then I don't necessarily need clearly defined goals to begin the process of change. I just need to understand that I want to change, understand what change looks like, and then start to close the gap between where I am and what the change I want to get to looks like. And I think that for me is one of the biggest pieces here, because the practical implication means that I must do something. And being that you told me that I can make a change without necessarily having a goal, I can do something. and discover my way into the success that I am not completely aware of right now. You got that look on your face.
Yeah, I kind of think that's like I didn't like when I during the pandemic, right before the pandemic, right after. It's kind of when I found my purpose, but I wasn't really looking for it. You know what I mean? I didn't have a specific goal. I was just like, I just need to get better. I just need to do something. And then what came out of that, I didn't have a specific goal, but like I said, but through some habits of doing things over and over and over again, I ended up finding my purpose. You know what I mean? I was listening to a lot of positive podcasts. I was listening to motivational things. I was reading books. I was, I was talking to different people and stuff. So I get that. It's like some dots just got connected in my head. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, you're good. And I think Adrian Thomas mentioned something like that earlier. Let me see if I can find it. There it is. He said, I'd say instead of goals, look into setting OKRs or objective and key results. Basically, you have an objective of what you want, and your key results are used to track your progress, right? And in somebody's minds, they're saying, "Oh, that's goal. Those are goals." Well, not necessarily. Again, you have to understand, like, I know what I want in the end. I just may not necessarily know what the benchmarks are to get there. So I am tracking, like you guys talked about weight loss, right? I don't necessarily say, oh, well, if I want to lose like 50 pounds, and the goal is to lose, because healthy, in a healthy sense, it is safe to lose 2 to 5 pounds a week, right? So if I lose 2 to 5 pounds a week, I'm gonna max it out. So I'm gonna lose 5 pounds a week. Therefore, I'm gonna lose 20 pounds a month. So now what I'm saying is that my benchmark is to lose 20 pounds a month. But it might be more advantageous to say, hey, I want to lose 50 pounds by July, right? And then don't set benchmarks, and then just kind of gauge your progress along the way. If you can track and measure your progress, that will keep a person focused. That's it. Plus, you can surprise yourself by the success that you're obtaining as well. So Adrian's kind of he's locked in. He's locked in on that.
Can I say something? Can I see Adrian's question again? Can I say something about that? The one after that. Yeah, that one. So I think yes, but I think that what you measure in progress has to make sense. And this kind of goes back to what Roland was talking about with the weight loss and stuff like this, right? 50 pounds, I want to lose 50 pounds, or I want to be healthier, right? So if the goal is to lose the 50 pounds and you're tracking your progress and those numbers are not changing from week to week to week to week,
Right.
you know what I mean? You have to understand while you're going through this process that my numbers may not change, but I may still be making progress. And I think, what Roland was talking about with the numbers and, versus the size, different things like that. So I just want to add to that.
No, absolutely. And the other side to that, if I put it on me for 5 pounds a week, and let's just say this week I only did 3 pounds.
Yeah.
Next week is 2 pounds. I'm still progressing. I'm just not progressing to the number I had locked in my head. So even though I'm still losing weight, I am actually disappointed that I did not lose the weight that I wanted to lose. So at some point, we got to recognize there are some other underlying issues that may affect you not necessarily achieving that 5 pounds a week. Is 2 pounds success? Yes. Is 3 pounds success? Yes. Be happy with success and not focus on your idea of success, because sometimes we'll talk ourselves out of success, not even realize that we're achieving success, but then we'll get to the point we're disappointed, we're upset, we're angry because I didn't lose 5 pounds, but you lost 3. Be happy. And I think a lot of times, with that being said, that kind of helps us to move forward, right? Define success in such a way that progression is the goal, not necessarily the type of success that you have in your head. You have something else, Roland? Thought I saw your hand go up. Okay. Okay, good. Again, thank you for everybody who are actually putting your comments in the chat. I'm loving it. I appreciate it. These brothers are adding value. You guys are adding value, and I don't want you to think I don't see it. I will start bringing some more up here shortly. Moving on, though. Habits are cued by context. Habits are cued by context. That said, the question is, how can an awareness of the contextual clues, the contextual cues that trigger our habits lead to more intentional and positive behavior changes in our lives?
I think when we experience new things, when C-19 hit, there was this app called Hangouts. I think it was Hangouts or something like that, where 8 people can come online and talk like this. And me, my sister, my cousin, we used to all get on there and cook. We would cook the same dish at the same time, every week, uh, a certain dish between us. And that started to develop, to me, cues for me. Hey, you actually like cooking. So now I see that I like to cook. I like to try new things. And what I did, I developed that desire to cook. And other people would say, well, man, you need to do this and you need to do that. Like, I don't want to do that. I definitely don't want to have a restaurant. I like cooking. When I want to cook, what I want to cook, not cooking a bunch of stuff for other people who may be ungrateful. I just like to cook. And so now I have the habit of cooking, and because I develop a like or a love for it, because I just like it. And now my awareness comes in because the context is cook. Now the cue, I know everybody in the house got to eat, have zero problem with that, but I know it fulfills me when I do it. So the habit is something that I look forward to. So it's not something mundane like, I got to make these Negroes some spaghetti tonight. Anything like that. It's something that, man, I want to see their reaction when I make this here. Let me see, because it's for family, it's not for everybody.
I should write my last little note down. I think that if you can kind of identify something that triggers you, I think that, all right, so in my mind, I'm thinking that, every time someone says this to me, I'm triggered, right? I get triggered. Someone posts something, I'm triggered. So I think if you can identify certain things that trigger you in this situation, I think it can help you better respond to certain things, right? So if coach is like every time, I'm triggered by people talking about my beard. So every time, my beard being white. So every time coach or Roland say something about my beard, I get upset, right? So if I know that's a trigger for me, if I can identify that trigger, then I can respond differently to them, because they may just be giving me a compliment, but because I'm triggered, I'm hearing it a different way. Or they could be, just, whatever, what I mean? So I just think in general that if you can identify your trigger, what I mean? Because a lot of times, we get triggered. Sometimes our triggers are based off certain habits that we have already formed. You know what I mean? So I think, like I said, if we can identify those triggers, then I think that may help us kind of respond more appropriately to certain things when we are triggered.
I like it. I like it. And adding to what you say, you have to identify your behavior,
Yeah.
right? That's the key. Sometimes you can't identify your behavior because it's so ingrained in you that somebody has to make you aware of it. In the phase of, in fact, I just asked you guys in the chat, what phase is that where somebody makes me aware of it and I accept what they tell me to such a degree that I have to analyze my own behavior to determine whether or not that behavior, what they tell me about my behavior, is accurate. Moving forward from that, once I analyze myself and determine that they were telling me the truth about my behavior, then I go back in time mentally to understand the thing that actually brought it to my awareness, the thing that triggered me to behave that way. So now I understand the trigger that caused me to behave that way. I don't go tell you, say, okay, but look, when you do this, that triggers me. No, that's the wrong side of the coin that you're supposed to exist on, right? The side of the coin that you're supposed to exist on is the side that says, I can actually see it And now I need to understand the type of behavior that I need to display that moves in the direction of the character that I want to possess. And so you're absolutely right. Understanding those contextual clues um, will help, contextual cues will help me to understand the thing that triggers me. And the context is not necessarily wrong. It's the way I respond to the context that I need to adjust. And absolutely right. That is the conscious incompetent stage. And Adrian, you're correct as well. That's acceptance as well, but that's found in conscious and conscious incompetence. So I think when we do that, and I think that's the healthy way to do it, right? And a lot of times we exist in a world to where we automatically reject what somebody says. I didn't do that. I didn't do that. I didn't say that. I didn't say that. And it's like, oh my God, I was literally just sitting here watching you. And now you're telling me that I did not see what I observed, or I did not hear what you just said. Okay, you're right. You know what I'm saying? And we just got to get to the point to say, hey, I'm not going to fight with you about that. You know what I'm saying? It is what it is. So all great points, and I greatly appreciate. Yes, sir.
Um, I'll start by saying this. I add some context. Look, for whoever's watching, who's ever in the chat, I don't know everything. No one up here does, but I also come on here because I get to learn as well. You know what I mean? I get to share information and knowledge, and I also get to receive some from these brothers as well as you guys in the chat. So when Coach was talking about you can have something that's so deep and so ingrained in you that you may not recognize when someone calls you out on it, right? So this goes in my head. What I'm thinking is like we're in the South. I'm in North Carolina, and I work with people from all different parts of the states and different countries. And some people are different, you know. So it's like I use a New Yorker, right? So sometimes when we look at New Yorkers, they may be more abrasive than people from down south. They may not speak. They may not say hello. Where not everybody, but people down in the south say, "Hey, y'all, what y'all doing?" They speak and stuff like that when they see you. So when we get in, when you have, I'm just using the New York thing. You have some people from New York. I'm not trying to, be offensive to anybody from New York. I'm just speaking about a stereotype and from some of the people that I've been in contact with that were from New York, right? So it's like when they are used to talking to people a certain way, being very direct, sometimes they may come off as aggressive or forceful, but when they speak to other New Yorkers, it's accepted. There's not a problem. This is how everybody speaks. But when you come down to the South, I've just literally a couple of days ago at work, we were having this conversation, and we was like, well, someone was like, well, they need to learn how to speak to people. We're not in New York anymore. They need to learn how to, down here in the South, we don't talk like that. We don't get close to people when we have conversations. We respect people's boundaries and people's bubbles. You know what I mean? So what do you how does that work, Coach? When what you was talking about, something being deep down and ingrained in them, like I'm from the South. Well, if y'all want to consider Virginia the South, but people will talk about see, but people's like, okay, well, it if that's how they talk and that's how they grew up and that's ingrained in them, even though I may perceive their behavior as aggressive, as mean, and it may trigger me, not me, but someone like me. Um, and I'm like, hey, you shouldn't talk to people like that. You know what I mean? That was rude. And they say, well, this is everybody in New York. This is how we talk. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Great question. I am very consciously cautious when somebody uses a subjective perspective and try to hold me accountable to it. Now, I do understand exactly what you're saying because going to in on the other side of on the other side of the world, they are very aggressive in nature. They talk
Hmm.
like right up in your face. They don't understand personal space,
Yeah.
right? And at first, I was taken aback. I was like, "Whoa, back up, bro!" You know what I'm saying? Like that's how I was. But then I realized me creating space was also offensive to them. I'm in their land. That's their culture. So I had to kind of rewire myself to realize that he's not trying to offend me. That's just how they communicate. And sometimes I think just because, oh, I feel like, okay, so what is the offense? Define the offense. Well, that was it sounded aggressive. Okay. It sounded aggressive, but what was the offense? Well, it's just the way you guys talk. Because I know a couple of New Yorkers and all y'all talk like that. And y'all need to stop talking like that when y'all come down south. But what is the offense? Right. And that's where I'm at. I am consciously cautious. I'm hearing it, but I'm hearing it from the perspective of help me to understand the offense. If you can help me to understand the offense, then I'll be very quick with making the adjustment. But if there's no offense and what you're telling me is subjective and you just want me to change to suit your needs, I'm not necessarily, forthcoming to do that simply because you're not the only person I talk to. Right. So, given the amount of information based upon your scenario, and again, I think it's a great question, but from that perspective, I am also careful, right? Because I am also careful not to offend. But then there are some situations where people just accept offense. Offense is floating in the air, believe it or not. Just like I can make a comment right now and it could be political in nature, and I am going to offend one group of people if I make that comment. And they chose offense because of that. Simply because my conversation and what I just said wasn't catered to them or that particular group. So if a person chooses offense, I'm that person. I am okay with what you chose, and I would give you the space to reconcile your emotions. I would even separate myself from you for a little bit of Trump for a little bit of time so that you can reconcile within yourself. But I'm not your puppy dog. You see what I'm saying? So and I get it. It's kind of like that gray area, but then by that same token, it's really not. Identify the offense. If you can clearly articulate the offense to me, then I will quickly apologize and repent for it. But if you can't even articulate the offense, then why am I changing?
I think the biggest word I heard in there was the subjectivity part. I think that's, because everybody's intent is not to offend.
And I think as individuals, that's where we have to grow. I can't expect someone else to be where I am. So if you come, like when I used to go home from Texas, I used to go home to Detroit. I'm like, man, I need to get back south because, and I told my wife this. I said, because when I'm down south, I'm the one that's rude. I come up here, everybody rude. But then I had to learn that where I am, I have to give people the ability to be themselves. And if them being themselves offend me, it's not necessarily them, but it's me because I'm not willing to change. I'm not willing to grow. I'm not willing to have conversations that may slide left or right. So we all have to mature and realize that it's not all about us. Sometimes we're too selfish and we have that behavior like if it doesn't come packaged how I deem it should be packaged, I don't like it. If I go to a church and he ain't got on a three-piece suit, if I go and he got on them little skinny jeans, if I go somewhere else, that's what we do. We say, look at it. Like I remember one time, somebody came in and they were in a wife beater.
Heathen.
And yeah, people look at them like, oh, look at this. He know he wrong, but the man needed help. So am I going to not help him because of how he's dressed? Or if I cannot love these people through these little triggers that I have in my head that I deem necessary.
So first and foremost, did we answer your question? Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. And again, that is a great question because a lot of times we have to realize that we have an image of a thing in our head. And a lot of time, the only thing that the person is guilty of is not fitting the mold of the image that you have in your head. Once you release that image, then you can realize that the world is actually a beautiful place for people to exist, not just me existing. Y'all fit into my world. You see what I'm saying? So that's why I really like that question. And again, thank you guys for your comments. I see Michelle Ray says she's been to Korea. That's what's up. Koreans are exactly like that as well. Listen, after going to Korea the first time, I loved it. You know what I'm saying? Listen, I love Korea, bro, so much that when they say, hey, you want to go back to Korea? Yes. So I went back a second time. And both times I regretted that I did an AIP. I love the culture. I love the land. Very aggressive conversation compared to what we're accustomed to. Right. And again, my landlord, was a Korean who used to be a government employee. So he was kind of, he kind of understood the, what we were dealing with, what we were doing. And so every day I would talk to him, and he was right up in my face. And I was like, you know what? I smell the kimchi on your breath, brother. I love it. You know what I'm saying? That's
Yeah.
what's up. All right, bring it to the stage. Let's see what he got. If a person is easily offended by everything, do you all think that a person's ego is demanded that they be communicated in a way that pleases them? I want to make sure that I'm not confusing they and them. So if a person is easily offended by everything, do you all think that a person's ego is demanded that they be communicated in a way that pleases them? So I believe what he is asking, you guys correct me if I'm wrong, if a person's is offended by everything, could it be an aspect of their ego and the reason why they're offended? I think that's what he's saying. Can you guys confirm or deny?
I think
No,
so.
no, you're good, brother. You're good, brother. I just want to confirm that that's what you're asking. Could it be all about their ego and the reason why they're being offended about everything?
I think so. I think it.
Gotcha.
Anytime it has to be my way, my way, my way, my way or the highway, that's all ego. So now I'm not really in a place where I can be in a relationship, and I'm not talking him and her relationship, but a
Mhm.
relationship with people outside of my kids, because those are the only people you can tell what to do. And when you come into contact with grown people, will have disagreements. I got to be mature enough to know how to de-escalate situations and talk instead of get mad or run or argue over everything that I disagree with.
I think because he said if someone is easily offended, but I think I kind of looked at this in two parts. One, like if Unc is easily offended by everything, right? And then I also saw a second part, like, do you think that a person's ego is demanded they be committed, blah, blah, blah. All right. So I think yes and no. So I think it comes down to what the information is talking about. So, like for me, I demand that people talk to me a certain type of way, but it ain't my ego. It's just you ain't gonna come out your side of your face and talk to me any type of way you want to.
Give me an
And if you
example.
do,
Give me an example.
um,
And I'm doing this intentionally.
yeah,
I'll give you an example.
give me
I
one.
don't allow people to call me the N-word.
There you go. All right. So that ain't ego. That's just I refuse to be talked about in a disrespectful way.
Right.
Now, because that does please me when people talk to me the way I want them to talk. But I also understand that if it's hold on. But in a positive way, like I said, I demand that people speak to me in a positive way. But I don't think that that's not my ego. I also understand that everybody may not talk like that. But I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm still thinking about this. I think I'm kind of trying to unpack it out loud instead of actually letting the conversation come through in my brain. So let me digress real quick, and then possibly come back to it.
When I was still in the military and dealing with soldiers, I had another NCO come up ear hustling on the conversation I was having with a soldier. Now the soldier had already addressed me, Sergeant Walker, yada yada yada, and as we're talking, and this is about something serious, they were just talking yes and no and this. You need to say yes, Sergeant. Back up, go somewhere else. I'm handling this. And I'm not one of them where you go, yes, Sergeant, no, Sergeant, yes, Sergeant, no, Sergeant, every 2 seconds after I ask you a question or whatever. Because if I'm trying to get through to you, I need you to relax. I don't need you worried about whether or not you call me the right doggone thing. Because if it's a serious situation, I'm not talking something we just out here shooting or whatever, but once you address me, I know who I am. I'm confident in who I am. Whether you keep calling me doggone sergeant or not, when I leave work, I ain't sergeant whatever no more. So, as long as you address me properly, it ain't no yeah, no, and I can't stand that. Like my kids know, I don't yeah, no, me. But
So you demand that people speak to you properly.
yeah, you talk. I
Yeah.
talk to you like a man.
I
I'm
don't,
not
but
talking to you
I
like a
don't,
woman.
but you don't think that's that, but you're not thinking that that is ego. That's just respect.
No, that's respect. I
Yeah.
think it's a difference in belittling or degrading and disrespecting versus me just talking to you the same respect I give you is what I'm talking to you. I want you to talk to me the same way, and you don't have to like me and you. You ain't no yes sir and all that other stuff between us.
Yeah. I got you. I got
My boundary, my yard, my work, right? That's where I'm gonna go with it. So at the end of the day, I look at it like this: no one is responsible for fixing what's in my yard. That's my job and my job alone. So when it comes down to a person who is easily offended, wait, again, I'm going back to what we talked about previously, because again, we have to understand the function of the ego. The ego is always 100%. The job of the ego is to preserve the flesh. That is it. That is the only responsibility of the ego. So a person whose ego is superimposed into every conversation, they will choose offense when the conversation doesn't go the way that they want it to go. The example that Roland gave, I love it because that goes back to boundaries, right? I'm not against, in fact, I'm a huge fan of boundaries, but we got to understand what boundaries are. Boundaries are for me, not necessarily for you. So the boundaries that I construct in my life, I intertwine myself with those individuals who understand the same kinds of boundaries because we have the same belief systems. Therefore, Roland ain't never had to tell me not to call him the N word. Never. Simply because I have those boundaries for myself as well. But I don't believe, and I could be completely wrong, I don't necessarily believe that that's exactly what he is talking about. I believe that he is talking about those people who want things catered the way that they want it to be. And if it does not fit the mold of the image that they have in their head, then they get in their feelings because you didn't do exactly what I wanted you to do. And then they treat you a particular type of way because of how they feel, you know what I'm saying, which is a version of manipulation. Remember, ego is the kindling to manipulation. Always has, always will be, right? So when my ego is in the middle of it, then my ego now does not necessarily want harmonious relationship. It wants relationships that's all about me. And therefore, if you're not doing what I want you to do, I got a problem. I got an issue. I'm in my feeling. I'm withdrawing. I'm responding to you in a particular type of way. So, in my opinion, again, going back to what I said, I love Roland's point because Roland is talking about boundaries, and I agree. But when we start talking about ego be all out in the street, up and down in your yard, and all kind of other stuff because it wants more territory. That's just it. But great question, bro. Thank you for that. Pressing along, because this time is running. Habits are learned through repetition. I'm going to skip that question only because of the amount of time that we have. I think that's pretty cut and dry. We kind of addressed that earlier with the 66 times. So point number 4 is habits are automatic. Move to this question here. How can we reconcile the automatic nature of habits with the making conscious choices? How can we reconcile the automatic nature of habits with the making of conscious choices?
I need to digest this one. I ain't even gonna lie. I ain't even gonna lie.
Reconcile the automatic. Hmm.
In my Chris motion.
Yeah, that would say I need a lifeline.
Yeah, I need a lifeline. Help me out.
Okay.
I think it's just question. I think once I start hearing it, I think it'll start coming together a lot more for me.
Okay, I'll come out on this one first. I think what we have to understand is that anything that is habitual, like we talked about previously, is subconscious, which means it's not in the conscious zone. It has been recycled over and over and over again. So now it's in the subconscious and it becomes pretty much automatic. I don't have to think about walking. Only thing I got to say, I want to go in the kitchen. I don't have to tell my right leg to lift up and extend forward and put my right foot on the floor, left leg lift up. I don't have to do that. It's automatic for me to walk. So when it comes down to these things, when we start reconciling the automatic nature of our habits with the making of conscious choices, in order for me to change the automatic nature of bad habits, habits that I want to change, I have to consciously put in my mind the new habit. If I'm not accustomed to you remember we was in the Army, we used to do the shuffle. I can't remember when we go to the side. Yeah, no, was it the shuttle run? One of those things, one of those different runs that you ain't accustomed to doing that you got to think about doing. Right. And so you have to literally think about moving from one side to the other as you run. I was teaching a class the other day and I was talking to the students, and I used an example of some people when they march, when they first start to learn how to march, they go left leg, left arm, right leg, right arm. It just looks so ridiculous. Right. But then you just tell them, say, walk natural. So that's kind of like what I'm saying. You have to consciously put in your mind and focus. And when we start talking about focus, y'all kind of give me a lifeline. In the last man up is different. Give me a lifeline about what focus means. So they have to focus their attention on what they're doing, right? And in focusing their attention on what they're doing, they start to do that. It's going to take a little bit more. It's going to take a little bit more deliberate effort, but that conscious thinking of the new thing that they're trying to create. Focus. I'm still waiting on y'all to help me out. Focus is a combination of two things. So that conscious effort of doing the thing consistently over and over and over again through practice, now that starts to seep into your subconscious, and that's the gateway to creating that new habit. Boy, y'all is slow on the draw today.
Oh, I'll let you speak. I had to.
I'm not talking about y'all. I'm talking about them in the chat. Lisa got one of them.
Because I remember the run, because it was like people be tripping and stuff. Tripping over themselves. And I had to understand this because I'm thinking, okay, reconciliation, automatic. So what we're doing is merging the two. So now they become one. And it's just like when I got out the military, used to getting up in the morning doing PT. Now I have to implement something else during this time. I'm up anyway. I got the habit of waking up. So now I got to bring some positivity in that. I can get up and watch Stephen A. and them cry about everything on TV. I can look at the internet, TikTok, all that other stuff. But now, what can I consciously bring into my space that I'm already in to make a new habit and develop these new conscious choices that I'm doing, develop them into a new habit. So I say, okay, I gotta either listen to or read a book. I have to pray, not in the same order, but I have to do certain things to develop these habits. So over time, now I've merged the time that the habit was already set for, and now this new thing that I'm trying to bring myself to do on a daily or however long.
I'm not going to have much. It's probably more of a question than anything. I'm seeing, just listen to you guys. I'm seeing like reflection, I think I'm like thinking about like reflection, reflecting on so you're going from one habit, a conscious habit, to a subconscious to a conscious. I don't know. I keep thinking somehow, like when you reflect on something, now you're thinking about the old behavior and you're constantly thinking about the new behavior. So I don't know. I'm kind of stuck right there.
You don't have to think about the old behavior because it's automatic.
It's automatic.
You're trying to replace the old behavior, right? And so the new behavior, which you have to focus on, since y'all don't want to help me out in the chat. So focus requires two things: thinking plus motor skill, right? So if you're a computer programmer, there are certain things that you can do habitually simply because you've been doing it for quite some time. You see certain things and you're like, oh, okay, keystroke, this, that, third, right? But when you see something brand new, you're like, wait, hold on, this is different. So now you're doing the algorithm in your head on what the equation looks like, right? It's the same thing when it comes down to a new habit. You're doing a new exercise, right? Brand new exercise. Well, you're not going to be able to do it fast out the gate. You got to focus. You got to think. You got to apply your motor skills to line up with what you're thinking. It's just like seeing a brand new baby walk for the first time. How is he walking? Hands up in the air like Fred Sanford. Why? Because he is mimicking what mama was doing when she was holding his hand walking backwards. This is his balancing metric. Give him time, them hands go down, them arms come up, and he's at a dead sprint later. You see what I'm saying? It's because now walking has become habitual. So it's the focus thing in the conscious level of thinking, right, that gets you to the point of repetition. And you do repetition, like we already talked about in the beginning, at least 66 times. Now it becomes habitual. Once it becomes habitual, I ain't got to think about it no more. I'm off and running.
I got it. I ain't got nothing else on this.
No, you good, man. You good.
Nothing else.
Again, man, y'all listen, y'all jump in the Diamond Club. I'm trying to tell you, we was talking about that for the past 2 weeks. And again, it's not just talking about it, it's talking about it from the perspective of tying it to certain principles for changing your life. Okay, moving on to the next one. The next one is habits are promoted by reinforcers. How can the recognition that habit change is a gradual process aligned with the principle of patience and enduring faith? How can the recognition that habit change is a gradual process aligned with the principle of patience and enduring faith? How can that actually help? How can this understanding help you to change those habits?
Let me bite on the first part. How can the recognition that habit change is a gradual process? I'm gonna stick right there. You know, like when Roland talked about it, he brought up the book. You know what I mean? I think it, you know, and then this goes back to mindset. It, you know, when you're starting something, it's a good idea, like Coach said, to understand what the habit is about, right? So if you understand that, you know, man, I keep drawing blanks. How can the recognition the habit change? I drawed another blank. My mind just shut off. I apologize for anybody out there. Look, I'll give some context. Look, I got up at 4:30. I drove
No, you
8 hours
good.
today.
You good.
I'm
You
back.
good,
So
bro.
I ain't firing on all cylinders right now.
You good. You good. What you got, Ro?
I guess I jump on where he was, where he left off, because when you look at the patience of enduring faith, principle of patience of enduring faith, patience only comes through enduring trials. So knowing that whatever habit I'm developing, there will be some trials, but I must go through them. I can't stop once I feel a little pain, once I feel a little adversity, I have to go through. And as I go through, I start to say, man, it's not as hard doing this as it was last week. So now I can see the growth within me. And when you notice growth within self, then you start to say, man, I can stick with it longer. And the longer you stick with it, the better you are with it, the better you are at it. So I'm recognizing it as I go through it, as I do it, as I recognize it's easier now. Because if I just do it one time and quit, it's always going to be just as hard the first time, the next time as it was the first time. But as I do it, I'm learning that, hey, I have a little more resolve than I thought I did. I'm with this thing and I'm getting it. And the more you get it, the more motivated you can be about it.
Good, or you want me to jump in?
You go ahead and jump in.
All right, so I apologize with my reading skills earlier. Right? How can the recognition that habit change is a gradual process align with the principle of patience and enduring faith? So I will start off first and foremost is that the first thing that we got to understand is that we don't live in a microwave society, right? Too many times we want things to happen right now. That's for starters. Secondly, what we have to exercise patience in a couple of different arenas. We got to exercise patience with self. Okay. A lot of times we put way too much pressure on ourselves, going back to what I said previously, because we don't necessarily see the outcome that we expect. We're seeing some movement, but we don't see the outcome that we expect. So first and foremost, we got to be patient with the process, patient with ourselves, and patient with those who are actually, within my bubble, within the course of this change that I'm looking at making. Next, when it comes down to enduring faith, faith is all about a belief system that believes in a future hope outcome that totally aligns with a particular purpose, right? Under the notion of faith, we understand that faith comes that faith without deed is dead. So if I'm not doing anything, then I should not expect anything in return. Now, in most cases, if it wasn't for time, I'll go back and say that again. But here's the other side to it as well. The things that I am doing actually makes what I am believing in perfect. So even if the thing that I'm believing in, the particular outcome, I am still a little shaky in it, the activity that I'm doing in the direction of the thing that I'm believing in actually codifies that in my mind and codify that in my behavior and the character that supports the outcome that I need to be for goal accomplishment, or not just goal accomplishment, I'm sorry, for habit change. So now we're looking at a number of different things: exercising patience in the process, exercising patience for self, exercising patience for those around me, right? Having the level, the measure of faith for the change of the habit, believing that it's possible, even though I may not have believed it in the beginning, understanding that it's not by my might to reach all the way out here and grab the change habit, but it's by my doing in the direction of the habit that I want. So long, drawn out explanation, but I hope that actually makes sense.
Makes sense to me. You muted, coach.
My bad. Time went by fast tonight. The last point, which I'm not going to necessarily ask a question for because of time, is habit change takes time, right? And that kind of goes back to the patience piece that we was just talking about. Listen, I want to make sure that I say that we appreciate each and every last one of you. Those of you who are in the chat, man, you guys are lighting it up. We appreciate you. Please don't charge it to my heart if I did not grab your message and brought it to the stage. I see it. We appreciate it. You guys are all adding value. For you guys who are observing, again, we appreciate you as well. This brings us to our bittersweet moment. We're just going to make it real simple. We're going to start with the Unk with the Funk. We're going to go around to poor man's Dr. Phil, and then I'm just going to close us out, and then we're going to end the night.
All right. So the topic of the show tonight was habit formation and change. As we spoke, and as one of the things that I think everybody, if you didn't get anything else, you understood that this is a process, and there are different steps that go along in this process of creating a habit, forming a habit, and then having that change in your life. Um, I believe that most habits, at some point when you're looking for that change, it has to start with the mindset. So I think, first of all, if nothing else, you have to start with the mindset. I also believe that some people may not, and I know this is contradicting what I just said, but I think that some people can start something even though they haven't developed that mindset yet, and that mindset can get developed through the process of consistency of doing that particular habit that you're trying to develop over and over. So I want to close by just saying that habit formation is a process. Spend some time trying to figure out and understand what the habit is, and understand what the habit is that you want to change or adjust in your life. Understand it as much as possible. Work on the mindset for that. Create some sort of goals or plan for that. And I think you will, based off everything the coach said and Roland said, I think you'll be a lot more successful, or it would be in your favor to be a lot more successful if you have a plan to go along with everything.
I think we should look at habit formation and change like a garden. And with the garden, before you even drop one seed in the ground, you have to clear and till the ground. You have to set up the soil so that it's fertile. And then as you make your lines, then you drop your seeds. But you only drop the seeds of the fruit or vegetables that you want to come forth. So in your life, you have to put things in you that you want to see come out of you. So if you want the fruit of hospitality, the fruit of obedience, the fruit of righteousness, you have to put those things in you. You have to live according to those things, because as you develop those habits, it's going to take work. You don't just throw seeds in the ground and cover them up and then expect fruit the next day. No, you got to come back the next day. You have to talk to it. You got to motivate it as you motivating yourself, and you got to water it. You got to make sure you pluck up any weeds. And that's how it is in our lives. We have to do those things to develop these positive habits, these habits that we would like to see in our lives, so that we can be better off from merely the formation of these habits, not just the habit, but the changing of habits, because the habits are already there. We got to change them to make sure that we have better habits.
I greatly appreciate everything those brothers said, and I agree. I think change is inevitable. I think we can make the decision to change on our own, or we can allow life to catch up with us and force us to change. Um, what we don't want to be is in the space to where life forces you to change, to where evolution actually happens and kind of push you along. We want to stay on the right side of the bell curve of life. We want to be the advocates of change, not only in our life, but in our community, within our loved ones as well. So, kind of like my brother was just saying, we have to understand the character traits that we want to display, and then actually put forth the energy and the effort to actually make that change. You have to be intentional about it. No one is going to do it for you. Again, I go back to my conversation about boundaries. My boundary, my yard, my work. If I believe that if I just get close enough to the fire to where I can stay warm, and that's going to incite change, then I'm actually doing it wrong, and I am living a life of entitlement. No one has the responsibility to do it for you. But what I will add to that is, it is an honor for anyone who believes in being a change maker, a difference maker, to actually help you through the process of change. So that being said, again, I appreciate you guys. We appreciate you guys. It is always an honor to spend time with you. Again, if you want to be part of change, if you want to be with a community that believes in change, again, go to www.totalmindsetshift.com and unite with these brothers and some of the other people in the chat. Again, www.totalmindsetshift.com. Listen, have a great rest of your evening. We'll be live tomorrow morning at 10:30. So if you guys can join us, it'll be great for you guys to see you in the chats again. Again, tomorrow morning at 10:30. Right, it's going to be myself and Miss Queenie. Right. So again, continuing those conversations that you guys appreciate. Again, have a great rest of your evening. Have a fantastic weekend, and let the best version of yourself be a blessing to someone else.